You've been listening to Part 5 of the Hunger Games radio drama on Radio SLCC. In studio with me, I have Lou. Being an economic professor, are there any similarities with the economics of what's going on in the Hunger Games and what's going on in our current situations?
Well, there probably are. Hunger Games is, I guess you'd call it a dystopia. It's a portrayal of how things might go if things don't go right. And we've been through an experience the last 5 years, economically, which also show what can happen if things don't go right. Do you all remember 2008? We came within 1 week of having a global economic collapse.
Okay.
A global economic collapse, a complete collapse.
That's scary.
Yeah, very. Now, fortunately, we did learn a few things having survived 1929. So the federal government did some things in the late Bush administration and the opening years of the Obama administration. They did some things. They were not always the best things, but they did something, and they did manage to save us from a complete economic collapse, but we've been left with a lingering recession. So we should know that a potential hole in the boat, as it were, in all our plans is the economy. It can go sour, and it can go very bad indeed.
Okay. So what do you think about the economy of the Hunger Games, meaning that the districts are very, very poor, going starving, and they're abused, and then there's so much excess in the capital?
This is an example of, as they say in the economics trade, a top-heavy distribution of wealth and income. And if you're paying any attention to what's going on with our political and economic debates in the present, this matter is increasingly discussed. And that is, we have in our present economy and globally an increasingly top-heavy distribution of wealth and income. It's raised a lot of those old Marxist fears that our market economy may be doomed because of this maldistribution, our top-heavy distribution of wealth and income. And Hunger Games illustrates what that kind of world can be like.
Okay. Do you think that it would be possible that after a civil war and after major destruction, which has happened prior to the Hunger Games, do you think it would be possible for a government to set up a gladiatorial type thing for punishment for the districts who rebelled against them?
Oh, I don't think it's far-fetched at all.
Why not?
Well, from what we've seen. Remember, we have seen extremely brutal dictatorships in the fairly recent past, historically. Remember, we had Nazi Germany in the 1930s. That awful dictatorship with its grand displays, its Nuremberg rallies, that happened in the most cultured nation in Europe. You know, you think about that. It's not Hunger Games isn't far-fetched at all.
So, do you think there's a close resemblance between the capital and Nazi Germany? Maybe?
Absolutely, I think there is a close resemblance between the capital and Hunger Games and Nuremberg. Absolutely.
Okay, can you expand on that for me, for the audience?
Well, the grand display. It's interesting, you know. Hitler always turned the lights on the crowd, and that's kind of what's going on in these celebrations. People are being compelled to be enthusiastic and cheer, and they're being watched. And if they're not sufficiently enthusiastic, well, there can be reprisals for that.
Yeah, because Big Brother's always watching.
Big Brother's watching, that's right.
This is the Radio SLCC in the Hunger Hour, and in studio I have Lou Jeppson with me. And Lou, we've been talking to you about economics. So how did you get involved in doing theater and drama?
Well, that's an interesting story. I taught adjunct in the economics department for about 10 years, and then I was hired full-time, and I had some classes here at the South Campus, and I just happened to be walking through the halls, and I was walking by some of the film classrooms, and people seemed to be having a lot of fun, and I looked in, and yeah, they were having fun, and I thought, well, why don't I have a little fun too? And ever since, I've gotten increasingly interested in acting and film and related media. I think it's it's really what's happening now. And I think this is a magnificent new facility here at South, too, by the way.
Oh, it is. Especially when everything's working properly, it's wonderful.
Oh, this is an excellent facility. Yeah. I got involved in this just before this was built. And so I can appreciate the difference between the way they were just before it and the way they are now. And it's a fabulous difference.
It has given us a lot more space and a lot more opportunities to do different things. So, have you ever performed in a radio drama before?
No, this is my first radio drama.
And were you familiar with radio dramas before now?
Just generally. I mean, I'd watched H.G. Wells do his presentation of War of the Worlds, but that's about all I really knew about radio drama.
Yeah, I thought about doing War of the Worlds, and then I decided it would be funner to do something that hadn't been done a million times by other people.
I think so. Yeah, that's a good choice.
Yeah, and I don't know if you know this, but the music that was in the Hunger Games radio drama is all original by students here on campus. To just tell you the truth, I was blown away by all the talent on.
Oh yeah, this is a truly a multimedia facility, and so it allows students to participate in productions from in all their dimensions. So yeah, this is great.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun doing this, and what I really appreciated about this is there were like 4 different departments working together on my one project, and it took a lot of coordination, and a lot of people were saying, "Are you sure you want to do such a big project?" And I'm going, "Yes, I do." And we did it with the help of a lot of people. It turned out.
This promises a widespread integration of different disciplines, which I really think is a model for the rest of Salt Lake Community College. There needs to be more of that, and this is a model for that.
I agree, because in mine, I had music people together, I had theater people, I had film people, and I had communication people all working together. Look what we did with those 4 departments, and can you imagine if departments worked together more often?
Yeah, I think with individual academic departments, there is a tendency for both faculty and students to think in terms of narrow academic silos, as it were. And now, with this sort of situation here at South, you've got a multimedia environment which allows students and faculty to see these enterprises from many different angles. And it gets us out of that silo mentality, and it expands our ability to think about these things.
Yeah, I would have to agree, because if we were not here on South, I'm betting that this project would never have happened, because I would have been stuck with Redwood, and people wouldn't have wanted to go up there, and I probably wouldn't have wanted to come down here. And so it was just a really good thing that everybody is down here at South that worked on this project.
No, it wouldn't have happened, things being as they used to be.
Yeah, I agree.
And I honestly think this place is it's state-of-the-art, and it's probably the best there is in the Utah higher ed system.
Well, yeah, some of the news people have been really jealous about what's going on with our equipment and our studios and all that stuff. So, now that we've finished this Hunger Games, are you ready to do the next book?
Yes, I'd like to. I haven't seen the next movie. Gonna next week, but yeah, I'm game to do the sequel on radio.
Cool. Because what I'm trying to do is get the cast together, and if we get the cast together, we will be doing it. Maybe we have to recast, but I don't want to recast anybody because they were so good. I mean, we had such a talented cast and such good-sounding cast that it would be hard to have to recast them.
Yeah, I think this really worked well, and props to our 2 leads. I think Scott and Juliet were just excellent.
Yeah, I would have to agree.
Yeah, I watched Jennifer Lawrence on the Letterman last night, and I think one of the reasons that the films work so well is her magnetic personality, and I think Juliette DeVette is a match for her, every bit. DeVette she's got some real talent. I think she's going to go a long ways in this business.
Yeah, I agree. So, Connor Thompson played President Snow. I think he did pretty good. Do you have any insights for President Snow's character? He's the president over the Capitol. He's the one trying to run everything and make everything look the way he wants it to.
Well, he's a master politician. He obviously understands the media Politicians aren't successful unless they understand the use of media. And media is used both positively and negatively. Pointed out the negative use of media on the part of Hitler. But then on this side of the Atlantic, we had Franklin D. Roosevelt using radio as a very effective medium with his fireside chats and all, and knowing how to use media. Media is a two-edged sword. Can be used for good. It can be used for bad. And I guess it's one of the lessons of Hunger Games.
Yeah, I would have to agree that it could be used either way. You were giving us an example of that with the Nixon-Kennedy debate. You're saying if people would actually just listen to listen to it without watching it, who did you say would win?
Yes, I listened to that debate. I remember it well. And if you listen to just the audio of that debate, you would think Nixon won. But if you actually watch the video, Kennedy won, hands down. Kennedy was just handled himself well with the visual media, Nixon not so well. And so perhaps the reason for the outcome of that election was Kennedy's use of the new video media.
Are there any other insights you can give our listeners, about Hunger Games that maybe we hadn't thought about before now? Because I know I had never really thought about Hunger Games being so much like Nazi Germany before.
Well, I think, with Hunger Games here, you've got, like I said earlier, a dystopia. Things are not the way we would like them because in Hunger Games, people don't have rights, or they have very limited rights. They've got technology, yes. I mean, they've got that super fast maglev train. They've got media. They've got technology, but they're not free.
Well, earlier you were telling me about your daughter, and she's at the U, and you said she's medical?
No, she's in chemical engineering.
What were you telling me about her?
Well, we were just talking about the promise of technology, and we were looking off into the future, and we were even speculating that we might figure out how to cheat death, figure out how to give ourselves eternal life, as it were. And, of course, I joke they'll probably figure that out the week after I die. But I pointed out, too, there's a potential hole in the boat here, and that is we will not really get the high end of technology unless the economy continues to work.
Yeah.
And so that's the potential hole in the boat. And people don't think about this. Remember, we almost lost the global economy back in 2008. Where would we be right now? Where would all of our advanced technological research be right now? It'd be nowhere. Mm-hmm. So the economy has got to work to give us these promising new technologies. And it's got to work to allow us to keep human dignity and keep our rights, keep our human rights. The economy's got to work.
Yeah, you're making me realize that you definitely need to have a solid economy and that people should be signing up for your economy class that you're teaching next spring.
Well, yes, let me plug that again. That's Economics 2250, where we deal with some environmental issues. Another hole in the boat, because we've got to handle these pressing environmental issues also, particularly in the area of energy generation. All energy production's dirty. Nuclear's dirty, coal's dirty, even solar to a certain degree is dirty. So we've got to figure these things out. We don't figure out the environmental issues, then that's another potential hole in the boat, as it were.
Well, it's interesting that you're talking about coal being dirty because coal happens to be District 12's thing that they do, that they're miners, and that's what they export to the capital. And if they didn't have coal, the capital would probably have no use for them.
That's true. That's interesting. I really hadn't thought about that, but that's right. The economy in Hunger Games is still largely coal-based, as our economy likely will be for another 50 years. But then that bumps us into global warming, CO2 emissions from coal-powered plants. This is a big problem. We're talking about sequestering CO2 underground from coal-fired power plants.
Well, wouldn't
not
it get
clear.
into the water if it was underground?
That's the problem. We know that CO2 being generated in American power plants now is being exported to Canada, where that CO2 is used to access oil reserves underground, put pressure on those oil reserves underground in Canada. But now that CO2 apparently, is polluting the theretofore pristine water supplies. Well, there's just holes in the boat all over the place. What can you say?
Yeah, there would be. And what do you think motivation for Snow's charisma and control over the districts is?
Well, Snow's motivation primarily, I think, is to maintain power, maintain his power, maintain the status quo. And in that, he's not a completely negative personality either. He's probably inherited this system, which has been established before him. He feels the need to maintain social stability. And from his point of view, the way to maintain social stability is to maintain that system.
Okay.
So, Snow is, I wouldn't say he's a sympathetic character, but he's not one-dimensional either. Because I frankly see him as potentially a multi-dimensional personality.
Yeah, he is. He really is. I know in the book that Katniss and Peeta, when they go in on their parade at the very beginning, their costuming is set on fire. How do you picture that fire looking?
Well, I've seen the film. I think it's spectacular. I think on the radio, the description is spectacular. And, of course, on the film, it's spectacular.
Yeah. Do you think that would be possible to actually do in life, is to make clothing simulate burning fire?
Probably possible now.
So you would just have to talk to your daughter and find out, right?
Yes, I'm sure there are. If that technology is not available now, it soon will be. Provided the economy continues to function. I think we've got to figure out a way to keep the economy working. And this quite honestly, is a tall order.
Yeah, it is. I see a lot of problems and a lot of things that people are trying to do and a lot of things that do and don't work. And I'm just glad I don't have to solve the problem. I want the problem solved, but I don't know how to solve it.
Well, I think the new generation has got to face some big issues.
You have any suggestions on how they can solve?
That's an interesting question. I think it's important that students, regardless of their majors, inform themselves of the important issues. I think it's important for them to know something about economics, and I think they have to take their place or participate in the ongoing debates intelligently, because we've all got a stake in this.
And do you think an intelligent debate is just being informed by the comedy shows?
No, obviously not.
Well, a lot of people just get their news from Twitter and comedians. What do you think about that?
No, that's just not going to cut it. One of the classes I've taught at Salt Lake Community College has been U.S. economic history, which is a favorite of mine. And I hate to say this, but I think I've seen some erosion of the ability of students to pay attention to something over a protracted period. In other words, when I was teaching U.S. economic history in the early 90s, I would actually assign them whole books to read, and they would do it. I can't do that anymore because students are so used to these instant feedback media. They bounce around. Attention span is being lost. And I think this is perhaps a threat to their ability to engage in the kinds of analyses that need to be undertaken.
So did you notice this with the development of the smartphones or before then?
I think it's become particularly acute with smartphones. But even before then.
Radio SLCC, and this has been the Hunger Hours, and in studio I have Lou with me, and we have been talking about the different dimensions of the Hunger Games. And, the one thing that I really appreciated that I was able to do with the Hunger Games is use it as a way to promote donation to the food drives, because in reality, hunger is no game. So, did you know that there happens to be a food pantry on this campus for students?
No, I'm ashamed to say I did not know that.
Well, there is. It's on the second floor here at South City, and all the food that was collected by the Mass Comm Center that you saw in the pyramid in the newsroom is just going right up there for the students and faculty, staff, people who in our community who need a little extra help for the food pantry, and they can just go up there and find out what they need to do to get that.
Well, good. That's very forward-looking.
Yeah, it was a psychology club who put that food pantry together, and I think that was very smart of them to incorporate that in the design when we were making this new media center over here. So, is there anything else that we need to talk about before we go?
No, this has been fun, and thank you for having me on.